Our next guest is going to be a college football analyst. He covers college football for On3 Sports as well. Good friend of mine. Haven't spoken to him in years, it feels like. But Andy Staples joins the show. Andy, what's going on, buddy?
Ryan, you never write, you never call.
Yeah.
We do text occasionally, though.
We do check. Well, you usually pointed out to everybody that why are we listening to Will Ferrell call a football game tonight?
It happens to me sometimes where I am in one of those multi-box situations.
Yep.
And of course, unless it's like the beginning of a quarter, they're not showing your faces. And at first I'll be like, wait, what? Is Will Ferrell searching? Oh, wait, that's Ryan.
That's
It's Ryan.
Well, milk was a bad choice. I know that. You were at the Texas A&M game. I was talking to the guys a little bit early, Andy, about what college football is. And for me, and this can be, of course, a projectionist point of mine, since I called only really the Pac-12 games this year for the CW, so a conference that was kind of left behind. I see it a little bit as the minor leagues. I didn't follow it that much. Guys are getting paid. I'd rather see them be, if they're going to get paid, I'd rather see them be playing for the Lions or something like that. But yet, there was 20,000 people in College Station last weekend to watch Texas A&M renew that rivalry. Where do you see the game of college football? What was it like being there and then watching the 12-team playoff kind of, start to spin this new version of college football in our eyes?
It's really interesting how it changed our relationship with games in November. I mean, we told the people who wanted to stick to 4 and the people who wanted to stick to BCS that this would make the November games more meaningful for more teams, and they didn't believe us. Well, they believe us now. Like it really changed the dynamics of everything, because we would not have been watching Miami-Syracuse with nearly as much interest as we were in the game I was at. So Texas and Texas A&M were playing for a spot in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
I mean, you got all the trappings of that rivalry, the fact that they hadn't played since 2011, and then you add some stakes on top of that. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. Not a beautiful game. Not a beautiful game. Both
game.
Defenses much better than both offenses. But we did get to see Arch Manning as like the designated running quarterback for Texas, which I did not have Arch Manning as the 2006 Tim Tebow on my bingo card for the year, but I kind of love it. So
don't forget he's Cooper's kid. He's not Peyton or Eli's kid. Right?
Cooper was a receiver.
Cooper was the wide receiver. He's got some ability on that. Andy Staples here joining us here on the Dan Patrick Show. The biggest gripe? What team may have the biggest gripe so far of being on the outside, looking in and not knowing what this weekend is going to project, but what we found out here on Tuesday night?
I think Ole Miss, Miami, and South Carolina all have the same gripe because they're not really any different from Alabama. Alabama's the one they picked to be in that last spot. Now, Alabama might not get that last spot. If Clemson were to beat SMU in the ACC championship game, they might leave Alabama there. They might only drop SMU to there and drop Alabama out. So we don't exactly know how that's going to play out. And that has been the argument raging in college football land all week is, how dare they choose Alabama? This is so stupid. It's always Alabama. I don't think it's always Alabama. I think it's Alabama in this case. Is Alabama super deserving? No 3-loss team is super deserving, but they all have flaws, and there's 4 that are kind of the same, and they got to pick one. And so that's the one they're picking, it seems like.
Yeah. Is there a team that's most likely this weekend? I mean, because we've had a conversation on the show today about, whether or not these games should even be played. What's the purpose of playing these games? You have, I would argue that Texas is the SEC champion. They have 1 loss this season in the SEC. That makes them the SEC.
Well, they lost to the team that they're going to play tomorrow. So.
Exactly. That's a big part of it. Is there a team that you see in the title games tomorrow or on Friday and Saturday that you see likely to be knocked out if we're to get that loss?
So Boise State will be knocked out if they lose to UNLV on Friday night. I mean, that's pretty much a predetermined conclusion. Whether it puts UNLV in or not is another question. It might, but then if Army beats Tulane, then there's probably a conversation between UNLV and Army. But this SMU part is really interesting. We had Rhett Lashley, the head coach from SMU, on my show today, and he said, look, if we all got COVID and didn't play this game, we'd be in the playoff. Yet you're saying if we lose to Clemson, we might be out. How is that right? And my co-host Ari Wasserman asked him, hey, if that happens, if you did lose and got knocked out, do you think it would change the way coaches approach these championship games? And Rhett Lashley's like, yeah, I think coaches would do some crazy things at that point, because if you're in the playoff and you've earned the right to play an extra game, the thinking is it shouldn't punish you.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I were a coach and I saw that happen to somebody else, it would make me rethink wanting to play in that game.
I mean, there's a real argument to be had that, Ohio State losing may have had a little bit of a benefit, because now listen, I'd take the bye. For me is a big deal. The bye is a big deal for me
Also the 5 seed is a big deal if you lost the Big Ten championship game, if you were Ohio State.
Yeah.
Because the 5 seed plays the 12, which may not necessarily be the number 12 team. That may be a conference champion that got raised up to 12.
Yeah.
So not only that, who does the 5 play in the second round in a tournament like this?
They play the 4.
The 4, which is probably not actually number 4. Yep. It's some conference champ that got raised. So
could be Clemson.
I would argue that 5 seed probably has especially if you didn't play in a conference championship game, has a nicer path than the 1 seed, which gets a bye. But that 8-9 winner is going to be somebody nasty.
It could be one of those teams that we talked about. It could be a Georgia. It could be an Ole Miss. It could be an Alabama, a team that is a brutal beat, physical in nature and everything like that. So, first year of playing out, there's going to be a ton of discussion around what this looks like and where you go with it and everything like that. National Signing Day. We're talking with Andy Staples here. National Signing Day was yesterday. And what does it mean now with the portal opening? What does it mean and is it different for certain teams? Like if you are at the very top of the heap, or if you're somewhere at the bottom where you're going to have to develop and maybe know you're developing for, let's say, Alabama in a couple of years, Mm-hmm.
You're treating it, if you're Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, the same way you always did. You go get the best high school players. You try to make that the foundation of your program, especially the big guys. Like offensive, defensive linemen for the most part are not going to come in ready to play. So you try to stockpile them as best you can. That's not going to be easy because of the transfer portal. Kids are smart. They see how this works. And I think what has happened is those teams can't stockpile the way they used to. Like Alabama's backups used to be better than probably everybody ranked below number 5. And that's just not the case anymore. Those guys go, I can just play somewhere else. I can become a first rounder at Arkansas. I can become a first rounder at Ole Miss. So why am I sitting here? And so it's made the market a lot more efficient. So it's really more where guys are going to start their careers. Whether they finish them there is another story. And a lot of ways it's more fair to me because I'm so used to covering the coaching carousel. So I'm used to signing day happens, and then we forgot we're firing the wide receivers coach. I'm sorry, you wanted to play for him? Oh, don't worry about that. But you're stuck here.
Yeah.
Well, you're not stuck there anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to be hostage to some whims by adults that have no real interest in necessarily what you're doing. The coaching carousel you spoke of, what maybe jobs are on the line this weekend? What jobs are maybe opening that maybe people may not think are ones that could be open here soon?
This is a weird year, Ryan, because normally there's a lot more jobs open. And I think a lot of the power conference schools have been afraid to fire their coaches because you got revenue sharing with the players coming next year. So that you're going to have to devote millions of dollars to that. You don't want to pay these buyouts. Some of the buyouts have gotten so ridiculous that they're almost prohibitive. Like Kentucky and Mark Stoops don't seem to be on the best terms right now, but they would owe him $44 million within 60 days. Like he ain't going anywhere if he doesn't want to go somewhere.
Right.
So you're like the best jobs open right now are North Carolina, Purdue, UCF, and West Virginia. And they're still looking for coaches. I think, some of those schools are considering coaches who are coaching in championship games this weekend. So we'll probably get a little movement on that after the weekend. But, I think everybody's looking at Columbus right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ryan Day's in the playoff. He's not going anywhere. I don't think Ohio State is firing Ryan Day, but Ryan Day has a Michigan problem, and he has to decide what to do going forward once this season ends about that Michigan problem. I'm guessing that he just wants to try to fix it, but you got to be careful because he's veering very dangerously into Don Cooper territory right now.
It's so strange. It's so strange how that game transpired on Saturday. I mean, I watched it in awe. I called the Oregon-Michigan game earlier in the year, and And they played pretty good at times, but it didn't matter. I watched the Ohio State-Oregon game as well, and that was a completely different football team in terms of mindset and coaching.
What was shocking to me was Ohio State tried to meet Michigan on its own terms.
Right.
Like, why meet Michigan on Michigan's terms? Dictate the terms. Like, you have Jeremiah Smith, who is the best wide receiver in the country. He might be, well, he's not yet, but in a few years, he will be the best wide receiver in the world. Like, within probably 4 years, year 2 in the NFL, he will be the best wide receiver in the world. They targeted him twice.
Yeah.
Like, do the things that you're good at. Don't try to beat Michigan in its own game.
It's dumbfounding to me. I'd be remiss if having you on, you and I talking about our friend Trevor Moawad. You wrote or co-wrote the book with him. It Takes What It Takes, and you know how important Trevor was to me. But I think you would have a really unique voice in the understanding of what transpired over the last couple of years with Denver and Russell Wilson, because you were intrinsically taught this neutral thinking because you had to write about it. And so the understanding of that, and I've tried to make it across that Russell may be the best of anybody who's ever done the neutral thinking aspect of things, what him and Trevor tried to.
So Trevor was Russell's mental coach.
Yes, cognitive.
But Russell kind of designed a lot of this and gave a name to it. And Trevor and I wrote It Takes What It Takes. And then as Trevor was fighting cancer, we wrote Getting to Neutral, which we kind of wove in the pandemic and like how, because we saw a lot of people in the real world trying to have to wrestle with the stuff that Trevor had to deal with athletes at a different level.
Yep.
And it was wild watching Russell in Denver, because it was like, I think if Trevor were able to talk to him and they were able to talk about thinking neutrally and how to deal with these situations, I think it would have gone better. But I do feel like when I hear Russ talk, when I see him playing in Pittsburgh, that he's getting back to that now.
Well,
and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, he tried to compartmentalize. And I think a lot of times when you are in that neutral thinking, because this is also the logic that I use with the way Trevor worked with me, once I walked out of prison 10 years ago, and I would be nowhere I am today if it weren't for him and what he did for me. But Russell can come off like a simulation sometimes, and it's just because it's this maintaining a certain thing, and he's the best that's done it. And I just thought that I'm usually the one talking about it when I come on and talk about Russell, and you wrote the book with Trevor, and you were perfectly situated to talk about it.
I am so glad you brought that up, because it's one of those things, and I was going back through It Takes What It Takes and Getting to Neutral the other day, because I think about Trevor a lot, and that stuff has helped me so much in my own life.
Yeah.
Just raising kids, doing the things you have to do to live life. And for those who don't know, neutral thinking is basically, the Power of Positive Thinking, very popular book. Trevor's dad was a motivational speaker.
It's not positive. We just don't allow negative thoughts ever to enter our mind.
Right. It's basically you don't allow negative thoughts. You don't verbalize negative thoughts. You just say, hey, here's what I know. Here's what I can do.
This is what I can
control.
And
you'd be shocked how much easier it makes life if that's how you're thinking.
It changed my life, bro. I mean, you've gotten to know me, you met me 9 years ago. We covered the Clemson, Alabama game together down in Santa Clara. I don't let anything negative creep into my mind. And it's hard, especially with the way the world works, and they want to talk to you about your life, And for Russell to do that, and I think that got lost a little bit in Denver. And I think we're just giving some context. Everybody in Pittsburgh has seen and what it's come from, but I just thought I would put that in.
It's fun to watch. Like that.
Yeah.
That whole situation's been fascinating. The Justin Fields to Russ, and look at that.
So Russ,
that's beautiful. That's like a Jack Lambert Russell Wilson jersey.
So Russ sent me away and home jersey this year, and I couldn't break him out until he got healthy, and I was just like, because I think I might have been the only one that actually said that this is a Super Bowl team with a competent quarterback at play. So we'll see.
Let's get George Pickens under control first. But
George Pickens is the talent of Antonio Brown in the eyes of Mike Tomlin, and I've talked to him before, and it's like the talent when it becomes an issue where it got to with Antonio Brown and I had to ship him out, that's when it. Until that time, the talent is so overwhelming for everybody. That's why they're putting up with it.
And Mike Tomlin's the one guy you trust to get that out of him.
And I trust it. And because I know that he knows when it's over, he'll pull the plug. And he has, and that's why he's still the coach and why everybody trusts him and stuff like that. So I could talk to you all day, man. I miss you, brother. It's good to see you. Thanks for hopping on with us today.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yep, good to see you. Andy Staples, everybody. Talking a little college football.